Hello, everybody. Let me make sure this is working right. And we are going to continue with Escape from Asylum. We're currently on towards the end of chapter 4. We're going to try and read through till we hit chapter 6. So, in the story right now, we have Ricky with Kay, which is one of the people that is in the asylum with him. So, so you're like me, he asked, trying not to think too hard about how long he might be at the hospital. He didn't think he could stand being here for a month. Kay laughed at that, glancing at him sideways. I'm not sure I would put it like that. So what then? Do you want me to guess? I wouldn't make you do that. Kay chewed her lip. It was rough and worn, as if she resorted to chewing it quite a lot. And I should take pity on you, seeing as how you've been talking to me like I'm a lady. Ricky blinked. Because you are one? She chuckled, rolling her eyes. You really think so? Is this some kind of trick question? He asked, his face suddenly warm. I mean, you are, Ricky insisted. I wasn't always that way. That was something to think over, but not now. He didn't like to be on the back foot of a conversation, didn't like feeling foolish. He took what he hoped passed for a casual glance at her. Well, you've looked like a girl as long as I've known you. That got a short laugh. You sort of have that Diana Ross look going on. It's nice. Diana Ross, Kay whispered it, staring past Ricky, her eyes becoming slightly unfocused. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Only if she wasn't born Daniel Ross, was she? Miss Ross and I aren't exactly on a first name basis, Ricky said lightly. K is short for Keith. Kay waited, watching, smiling wider the longer the silence went on, like she was used to this. After a moment, Ricky nodded. He just nodded. What else was there to do? He understood, and it seemed like she had more to say. My parents are both beanpoles, and my pops couldn't grow a beard if his life depended on it. All that's lucky for me. She laughed, wistfully shaking her head. My brother found out I was hopping a train to Baltimore, ratted me out. I heard a doctor out there helps girls like me. Guess that was for nothing now. That's why they keep cutting your hair here? He asked. Kay nodded, smoothing her long fingers over her patchy hair. Before they put me in here, it was nice and long. Wish you could have seen it. What's in Baltimore? An open mind or two, she murmured. I was afraid, you know. I didn't really want to leave home. But what else can you do? You have to grow up, I guess, or try to. I'm not sure I could have gotten this far as the train station, Ricky said honestly. It takes a lot of guts. I didn't get on it, she said shyly. Who knows if I who knows if I would have made it all the way. Hey you two, work hour is over. Nurse Ash hurried up to them, her white skirt and jacket streaked with mud from helping Sloane. The yard had emptied. The yard had emptied except for the three of them and an older man with spectacles and a long white coat who stood watching from the doors. Ricky hadn't noticed him before, but now he could feel the weight of the older man's eyes on him, and it left him unsettled. Was he in trouble? Kay said there wasn't supposed to Kay said they weren't supposed to talk so much. Maybe this was what she meant. It's rude to interrupt, he said half jokingly, cocking his head to the side. That's cute, Mr. Desmond, but it's time to go inside. Kay started back up the hill obediently. Just do what they say, Ricky. Take it from me. It's much easier that way. So now we're on chapter 5, guys. Who is he? Kay looked up from her pad of paper. With a soft blue crayon, she had doodled a sailboat nestled into a cloud. Her gaze strayed from the paper just for a second. Warden Crawford. He's got a staring problem, Ricky said, watching the man at the door. It was the same person he'd seen watching them 2 days earlier during their supervised gardening. Just like then, the man Ricky the man watched Ricky steadily, conferring in whispers with Nurse Ash. She shrank in his presence, hunched her eyes darting away from him constantly. In fact, all of the employees at Brookline acted strangely when the warden was in the room. They became quiet, motionless, as precisely still as toy soldiers. Wouldn't you love to look at what they're scribbling on those clipboards all day long? I'm not convinced I want to know, Kay said. You stop noticing it, and the less attention he pays to us, the better. Day 3, he said in the most stuck up, nasally voice he could manage. Patient's still here and still completely nuts. Ricky dropped the voice. Does he really think he can change you? Or me? She shrugged, adding a few trees under the sailboat. Here's the sailboat, guys. He keeps me here as a favor to my pop. I hope the money is enough to make him happy. If he's happy, he might just leave me alone. Ricky smirked at that, but his smile dimmed quickly. He hated being studied like this. The warden and Nurse Ash weren't even being subtle about it. They were obviously discussing him, treating him like some kind of specimen under the glass window. He stared back, daring them to do something about it. Next to the warden and the nurse on the wall hung pictures Ricky had seen several times now as he came and went from the large common area. He tried not to look whenever he passed the pictures. They didn't seem like the kind of thing that ought to be freely displayed. Images of patients like them, some sitting quietly in their rooms, others strapped to tables in the center of a full lecture hall. Somehow those photos were even more morbid with the warden standing next to them, utterly unaware or bothered by them, as if they were watercolors or family portraits. Those pictures, he said. They were supposed to be working in their little yellow pads with their sad, stumpy crayons, the only writing implements they were trusted with. Ricky had no interest in suicide, but it was true that at this point he might put a pencil through his eyeball just to get a frantic visit from his mother. I hate them, Kay murmured with a shudder. I never look at them. Doesn't it seem odd that they're out there in the open like that? Ricky asked under his breath. Creeps me out. I think that's the point, she said. I think they're supposed to. And here's a picture. I think they're supposed to be like a threat, a warning. They are a warning. Ricky glanced over away from Kay, turning to the young man who had suddenly spoken up. Ricky hadn't really paid him much attention before, since, like the other patients, he worked in almost total silence. Obedience. He looked like to be a little bit older than Ricky, but it was hard to be sure. He had a handsome, ageless look with sleepy blue eyes and a friendly mouth. You two talk a lot, the boy added. I should know. I I just know that the nurses don't like chatter. Our whole table could be disciplined. They're watching. Relax, Tanner, Kay replied. She wasn't testy, just gentle. We'll keep our voices low, okay? That didn't appease Tanner. He wore a haunted expression like he had seen some serious bad things in his time. Oh, great, he's coming over. It was too late for lowered voices, apparently. As the warden approached, Ricky didn't break eye contact. He couldn't have, even if he had wanted to. Most adults didn't intimidate him much, but there was something different about this warden guy. He didn't look mad or even concerned, or just blank, like his skin was a mask for another face behind. Am I getting us in trouble, Kay? Ricky whispered. I told you, Tanner muttered, head bowed over his journal. Don't panic, either of you, Kay said. He probably just wants to say hello. You're the new kid, remember? I never forget, thanks to you. Kay flipped the pages of both their journals back to the half-hearted paragraphs they had started for their daily entries. The warden crossed the room at a leisurely pace, and Ricky started to see spots in the corners of his eyes. Blindly intense bulbs lit all the purpose of the room. You could never forget in this room that you were in a hospital, a place where surgery was conducted. The thought made his throat tighten. Kay had told him more about the hospital in California where they sent her aunt. They did all kinds of brutal experiments on the patients there because they were undesirable and perverted. The doctors could do whatever they wanted. At least Ricky assured himself Brookline wasn't that kind of place. Hello, Mr. Desmond. The warden's voice was as calm and blank as his demeanor. He raked his eyes over Kay, a flash of memory in his eyes before he fixed his attention back on Ricky. Afternoon, Ricky said. He finally broke eye contact and looked down at his nonsensical journaling. His stomach tightened in a knot. Most adults hated when he stared back at them, defiant, challenging, but the warden hadn't seemed to mind. He seemed to welcome it, smiling that unwavering half smile, a ventriloquist's dummy smile. I'm Warden Crawford, but I'm sure you already knew that. Nurse Ash informs me that Keith is just full of information, he said. Even then, he didn't take his eyes off of Ricky. Kay flinched, the pointier end of her crayons digging into the paper, making a tiny wax divot. Here we encourage our patients to write in their journals dreams, thoughts, your own point of view on your time here, whether it's successful or otherwise. I find it useful to reflect on such things. I trust you're both embracing the exercise with the full effort it deserves. His smile flared, but not in a friendly way. Ricky shifted his hand, covering his paragraph of random song lyrics, half of Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, smudged under his wrists. Yep, we definitely are, Ricky mumbled. Definitely, Kay corroborated. As our newest patients, did you have any questions for me? The warden asked, leaning in closer as if to try and get a peek at what Ricky had scribbled. Just one question sprang to mind. Do you know when my parents might visit? Ricky asked, trying to take the heat off his new friend. That Andy was honestly curious. There had been some kind of visitation schedule set up eventually. At Hillcrest, parents were supposed to visit every weekend, just like with the eye contact. Asking blunt questions tended to throw off adults. But he was beginning to realize he'd have to get trickier, smarter to have to deal with this man. If you were such a genius, you wouldn't have ended up here. You would have kept your stupid temper. Soon, I'm sure, the warden replied gently. Nurse Ash assures me that you're settling in nicely, which tells me it's high time we begin your treatment in earnest, My treatment? His eyes flew to Kay, but she was trying to disappear into the table. And what will that be like? The warden chuckled, craning back and tucking his hands into his coat pockets. He pulled out a tiny metal tin and opened it, popping a mint into his mouth. I'll be seeing to you myself, Mr. Desmond, so don't worry. Your curiosity will be satisfied soon enough. And there you have it, guys. We hit it, chapter 6. We're going to go ahead and keep continuing on with this, see how far we can get. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns, make sure you let me know. Send me a Google message or a Google email. Otherwise, have a great day, guys.